Did you know that millions of people all over the world will go to bed tonight eating rice and fish for dinner? Well, make that 1,000,001 because this is what I had for dinner tonight. I had some rice that was seasoned with accent and a chicken bouillon and a tab of butter. Tab? a pat of butter. Is that better? But before I get into that, I want to talk to you about water. Considering that we use water for just about everything. So, if the water in your community was all that bad, don't you think more people would be in the hospital? So how did we get to this point where we're convinced that water, it has to come out of a plastic bottle for it to be any good? As for me, I no longer buy water in a plastic bottle because I don't want to. So I buy a filter, and this one filter you see will filter enough water, the equivalent of 700 bottles. But enough of that. Let's talk about food. I wanted to accent monosodium glutamate in my cooking tonight because it is a flavor enhancer and I like to use it. But I cannot remember if I've ever shown it on a video. But tonight I will show it on a video, and I will tell you that it is good. Just as mayo is good. Did you know that rice with the mayonnaise has its own unique flavor and it's very good? I also use sardines in my cooking tonight because I wanted to illustrate cooking rice and that people all over the world eat rice and fish. I also eat rice and fish and whole wheat bread. But let's get back to cooking. It is my opinion that accent, monosodium glutamate, has had a bad rap, and I think it did not deserve that. I want you to read the label of what you're using as a flavor enhancer and then read this label. Besides, if you have a question, you can always go to the website accentspices.com and you'll get all the answers you need. Now read the label on what you're using as a flavor enhancer. You see the difference? It is like coconut oil. Coconut oil have had a bad rap for years. An undeserved bad rap for years. I cook with coconut oil and I love using coconut oil. As a matter of fact, I made some rice tonight and I made some egg with fish. The rice was made with 2 cups of water to 1 cup of rice. That's the standard way of doing rice. Of course, if you're going to be cooking brown rice, I would strongly suggest that you read the package. Brown rice cook a lot longer than white rice. Be that as it may, all I did was to add 2 cups of water into a pot and simply waited for it to boil. But before it did boil, I added some other things. I added some flavor enhancers. You like them? Those little granule. And I also added a chicken bouillon, a cube. All right. So in the pot it went. All right. Now, all I needed to do now is to wait for the pot to boil. I crushed those, by the way. And once the water started to boil, I added the rice. So the rice was added to the boiling water. Now, remember, and this is just personal opinion, but I think it's better to cook rice by itself without adding anything except perhaps some salt. Because the more things you add to rice is the more of a chance you have of having the rice stick to the bottom of your pot. This time, of course, I didn't do that. I added my flavor enhancer and a bouillon cube. And once it started to boil, I turned it down to simmer. And once I turned it down to simmer, I added the lid. Put the lid on the pot. Okay, so much for the rice. In about 30 minutes, it'll be cooked. And now for part 2. 2. 1 egg. Yes, I should have used a bowl, but I didn't use a bowl. I simply used a cup. So, it was 1 egg in a cup, and once it got into the cup, of course, I added just a wee bit of milk. And once that was added, I added some hot sauce. I happen to like hot sauce. And this hot sauce is kind of interesting. So I added some hot sauce, beat it up in the egg, and then I added the egg to a frying pan with coconut oil in it. Okay, so now you know. So I fried the egg like that, and then I flipped it over like that, and then I added my sardines like that. Notice the hot sauce on the sardines. Did you notice that? And once I did that, of course, all I had to do was to, the toughest part of cooking was to try to flip it over. Well, I eventually did flip it over. And once that happened, voila, it was dinner time. It was sardines, meaning fish and rice, with a little pat of butter on the rice. And that rice, by the way, was so delicious. So delicious. So very delicious.